Knowledge. I'm one of those guys that wants to know, but I don't want to know everything. I'm serious. I mean, it's been pretty much tried and proven that in social situations, most people don't like know-it-all personalities. I think the main reason for this is know-it-alls not only come off as arrogant, they also can make folks feel intellectually inadequate. And nobody likes to feel inadequate. I don't care what the situation is. See, self-esteem is hard enough for most of us as it is. We don't need other people making our insecurities worse. But not wanting to be a know-it-all is not the reason I limit my knowledge. I've got a few personal reasons I'm going to share here that may make you think twice about wanting to be the smartest guy in the room. Part of my personal journey is to find facts that seem to stand the test of time, because most things are subject to change. So, until we all change from human beings to robots, these are facts. Number one, knowledge is power, and you can overload. See, the body thrives on balance. Never forget that. Too much of anything and our body goes out of whack or becomes fucked up entirely. You can have too much sugar, sun, sleep. You can shit too much. And you can even drink too much water. You can even be too happy because it keeps you blind to very real negative shit going on around you. This is all true what I'm saying, by the way. Keep in mind that those things I said you can have too much of are things the human body needs to function. So balance. That's going to be a common theme in this video. The knowledge you have must be balanced with creativity, leading me to reason number two. Too much knowledge that you feel is factual affects creativity. That you feel is factual. Shit could be wrong. Doesn't matter to anyone else. It matters if it's right to you. Imagine you're in jail, and every day someone reminds you of the fact that you're in a jail cell. Sure, you can try to tune that shit out, but it's still a fact that you're in jail, no matter what. The more you know, the less creative you are. Too much knowledge becomes a box. However, if you're left alone, your mind will become creative and think of ways to either escape your jail cell or find imaginative ways to make the cell more interesting. Knowledge must be balanced by the imagination. You don't need to know shit in order to dream. It's like people who can talk without knowing how to read. Imagination says, fuck knowledge and logic. Let's go to fucking Neverland. You know what I'm saying? So even though knowledge can take different forms and encompass all things, you have to turn it off in order to daydream or imagine or simply clear your head sometimes. Because not only is it fact that we have societal laws and systemic laws and all kinds of other shit that keep human beings in check, aka a box, the other fact is that we are human beings. And the only real limits are what this body can do, our own morals, and our relatively short lifespan. Ultimately, there's another viewpoint to too much knowledge, and that is the more you know, the less sure of things you become. It's due to the fact that life is incredibly more complex than you perceive. Even an hour of reading quantum physics will prove that to be a fact. The bottom line is, find your knowledge balance. Your mind will thank you. Let's go to reason number three, our source of knowledge. This is very important. Another reason I don't need to know everything, nor do I want to, is because the sources of a lot of our knowledge is skewed. Knowledge is just like your food. You have to pay attention to the source of it. The wrong knowledge source can be poisonous in the long run. It can fuck with your mind and your well-being. Case in point, most days people look to the internet for information. But haven't you realized that the internet is wishy-washy as hell? You can search for whatever you want, but come up with different answers, leaving you to say to yourself, what the fuck is the real answer? Or maybe you say, fuck the internet, I just watch the news. But the news is not really new. I don't even know why they call it news. It's old. It's not instantaneous. Even when you see on the street reporters and quote unquote live, it's on delay, meaning it's not in real time. It was always secondhand info. Even when they ask witnesses questions, you got different answers. So the only way to really know what happened is you just had to actually be there. Plus, news has been exposed as having numerous political agendas. So true journalism is damn near gone. And yet, news is everywhere. You're fed bits of it all the time. This way you don't feel full of it, but you get just enough for the news to affect you. Often the news is negative. Should you even wonder why most folks feel the world is fucked? Because that's all the news feeds everyone. The negative makes money, and America needs its money. Again, Your sources of knowledge can poison you or enhance your well-being. Be selective in what you want to know. Be sure in regards to your curiosity. Some people want to learn about historical subjects that involved a lot of death, like wars or the genocide committed by Columbus. Others say fuck that shit because they can't handle death well. That is knowledge of self. That's extremely important. For instance, and this is probably the best example I can give you, there's a ton of people who want to know what actually happened on 9/11, government conspiracy or not. Quote unquote, the people deserve the truth, they say. But let's imagine for a minute. Suspend your knowledge for a moment. What if the president came out and admitted that the worst attack on U.S. soil was paid for and supported by the United States government themselves in order to get public backing for a war, and took the lives of over 4,000 civilians and was responsible for billions of dollars in property destruction and financial ruin for years? How would you think Americans would react to that? Having the knowledge that at any time their own government will kill their entire family to further whatever agenda. I don't know about you, but I'm imagining that suddenly a lot of white America would get a taste of what it's like to be a black man living in America. That aside, I'm imagining that knowledge would change America itself for years to come in ways you can't foresee. But I do know for a fact that there would be a lot, and I mean tons of people suffering from anxiety and post-traumatic stress and sadness. Because in this scenario, the government itself would admit to wholesale murder. So that scenario aside, we must be very careful of the knowledge we seek. But the first knowledge we need to work toward is understanding ourselves. Chances are, if you're asking a question and your heart is already beating a mile a minute before you get to the answer, you probably shouldn't be asking the question because the answer is going to fuck you up. You probably ought to give it a while and then ask the question again, sometimes years later, when you can handle it. And I'm serious. Get to know yourself. And that's why I'm a huge advocate of empirical evidence and data. Empirical evidence is the information received by means of the senses, particularly by observation and documentation of patterns and behavior through experimentation. Scientists use it all the time. That's why it sounds so sciencey when I'm explaining it. It's got its flaw because there's things we can't see as humans until we create the right observational tools. But it works. Case in point, consider what we thought we knew with our eyes before we invented the microscope. Then we began to really see shit. If we apply empirical evidence to normal existence, living, then empirical evidence is the knowledge one gains by living and experiencing things, observing, noticing pattern of behavior. It's the complete opposite of being fed info. It allows you to gain wisdom instead of being fed someone else's view of things. You form your own opinions and evaluations, leading to your own judgments. It's like you are a scientist and life is your experiment per se. Like the old saying, life is meant to be lived. That shit is true as hell. Because there's a whole world out there that you're probably shielding yourself from or feel you have no interest in exploring. But if you did, if you came out of your box, you would actually gain better knowledge of the earth, humans, and yourself. The knowledge most of us being fed actually keeps you listening to the same music, eating the same things, because advertisers told you to eat here. Current fed knowledge keeps you seeing other countries as shitholes and keeping you from actually traveling there to see for yourself. Millions watch the same TV shows because you're told they are great shows. Millions have yet to take seriously the fact that if you give a human being the same thing, they begin to accept it, even if it's a lie. So the hot show, which isn't so hot, begins to become interesting. Hell, the only reason you gave it a chance was because everyone said it was a great show. But would you have watched it if no one told you about it? See what I mean? Ask yourself, what do you know? How much of your knowledge was fed to you versus trial and error, aka fucking up and learning. Paying attention like your life depending on it versus keeping your eyes on your phones all the time, ignoring the world around you, ignoring the things that could catch your eye and inspire your mind to questions or even spark your imagination. To gain empirical evidence in life, you have to take the training wheels off and live. You may say, dude, I am living. Matter of fact, I'm living my best life. And to your midget ass, I would say keep on living. Because as long as you're out and about or being social, for real, not on a device, then you stand the chance of fucking up. Which is great, because that's how you gain knowledge of self. That's how you experience real happening life, not the secondhand information that may or may not have happened the way it was reported. That's why older people know so much about history, because they were there for it. Reading about the civil rights marches is far different from being in the march. Seeing legends perform is different from watching them on TV. The energy is different. Plus, at some point, the camera turns off, and only those who were there can see the extras. That's happening. That's the real. That's being a part of history versus reading about it in the paper the next day. Look around at all this convenience. I mean, I love technology, but I also know myself. I know it would make me lazy and less intelligent as I depend on something else to do the work for me. Even look at the convenience of online dating. You damn near never have to have that feeling of your heart busting out of your chest as you introduce yourself to a hot person on the street. You never feel that fear as you hope the person doesn't think you're a fucking nut job who's about to take their purse. That's the kind of stuff that makes living so worthwhile. It really makes you a better person. It makes you come out of your safety, or go back to your safety depending on if she didn't like you. But still, you spoke to her. And shit like that takes a lot of courage, man. And you'll use that shit later on in life. Believe me, you can draw on that same experience later on when you're thinking about public speaking or getting on the stage to act or sing. Or when you go on a job interview. The convenience. It's safety. And safety is a lie. You're never completely safe. As long as there's humans and animals on this bitch, no, it's only a false sense of security. This is wisdom from an older, learned man. Get out and actually use your 5 senses. And the other 6. Yeah, look it up. I mean, here's a couple of them though. The sense of balance, the movement, temperature, pain. There's more, but all of these allow you to experience life in a way that's more interactive. If you're on a computer or phone at home watching TV after work most days, how do you experience the sense of balance and movement, temperature, taste? All of those can be felt just by taking a walk around places you find to be interesting, or trying a new restaurant on that same walk. When we're interested, we learn more. We are stimulated. There is more to living than TV, song, news, work, eating, sleeping, fucking. All that is just one side of life. And many of you are not balancing it out with the other side of it because you're comfortable, because you feel safe. And your safety comes from a fear in the first place. But the more you know about yourself and the world around you, you learn to respect more things instead of being scared of most things. And ironically enough, many of the book smart folks are usually the ones who are scared to get out more. I knew this guy who's always into his data and statistics, and it got to the point where so much of what he said was prefaced with the latest data that I had to ask him, what do you actually think about things? You, to hell with the data. Yeah, we ain't friends anymore, like I said. It's like I offended him by asking him that question. They use analytics in sports to find players' tendencies, and it works to a very large degree. But it doesn't tell you everything, nor can it 100% predict the outcome of a game. Look, for all you data nerds out there, you can read a 300-page book on fighting. Know the book concepts in and out, man. But you can go outside and still get your ass whipped. Why? Because life does not go by the book, my dude. You can know all the number percentages of every situation in the world, but it doesn't change the fact that living is a game of chance. You have to get out and live and be better for it. And while you're living, experiment. Take in all of the empirical data, using all of your senses that your body has to experience life.